And action, and welcome everybody to the PnP Weekly episode 165. It is 5th of May 2022, and today, well,
9th of May.
It is 9th of May 2022.
Back to the future.
Wow. Anyway, so in the PnP Weekly we talk about the latest in Microsoft 365, and we typically have a visitor, and we cover the latest articles from Microsoft and the community. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a product manager. I'm still trying to this new title, product manager, in the Microsoft 365 platform areas. And with me as a co-host is Waldek.
Hi everybody. My name is Waldek Mastykarz, and I'm cloud developer advocate for Microsoft 365 and Microsoft. And at this show, we talk about random dates and apparently seals.
And seals, that is true.
In this episode.
Yes. In this episode, we talk about seals as well, among other things. So we have Laura Kokkarinen joining us from the Finland, from the mid-Finland, pretty close in the areas where those seals are coming from, actually. So.
If you have no idea what we're talking about, stay tuned for the next half an hour or so, and you will learn everything about it.
But Laura is a Office developer MVP and has been MVP for quite a long time, active in the community and blogs and does videos and all of that stuff. So let's not delay anything. Let's jump on the interview with Laura and talk about what she's been doing within the past years. Welcome, Laura, joining us on the PnP Weekly episode 165. This is not your first time in the show, actually, but let's do a quick recap who you are and what you've done since. I can't remember which. I think
I haven't checked.
Immediately doing
yes, I was like, oh yeah, we're going that way. You're 14. Totally going to ask me, so.
It was episode 14, so 150 episodes ago. So is that 3 years ago then?
Yes, correct. Wow.
That is
14.
Is a while.
That is 4 years ago, I guess, because like we do less than 50 a year. So, wow.
So Laura, who are you? What do you do?
My name is Laura Kokkarinen. I work as a software architect at Sulava in Finland, and I do software development related to Microsoft 365 and Azure. That's about it.
And you're also an MVP.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Been an MVP since January 2019.
And you're doing, of course, a lot of blogging, and you've been starting doing personal videos as well, which is pretty cool. So
yeah, this one. Let's see when the next one comes out.
Now, can you talk a bit about what does your job actually do? What do you do what does the software development stuff day to day? What does it mean? What do you actually do?
Well, I have quite a diverse role. So I design software architectures related to Microsoft 365 and utilizing Azure platform as a service resources. And I also do software development myself. I haven't wanted to give up on coding because I think it's a lot of fun. And I also got this new hat in the beginning of this year that I'm this solution area architect at Sulava, responsible for software development offering. So I design our offering and teach our salespeople how to sell it, and also I'm in charge of our internal processes and our software quality so that we implement things according to best practices, and security is handled in our applications. And I'm also in charge of our learning paths. So when a new junior developer comes in, there's like a learning path they can follow depending on what they're interested in. And yeah.
That's a lot of information.
Is there anything you don't do?
Exactly. A lot of information.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's like I instantly want to ask so many things, right? Because like for one, Microsoft 365 and Azure is a big space, right? Even on 365, you can think about old intranets that we know from the past. You can think more about digital experience or employee experience space, digital collaboration, communication. So which area do you work with, or all of them actually?
All of them. Everything, right?
I don't do like basic consulting, if that's what you're asking. The consultants handle the customers when they can get away with the out-of-the-box products. And when the customers want something more advanced, then they come to speak to us developers. And then we come into the picture and discuss with the customer like what would be the best way to implement what they want.
Can you talk about some of the examples? So what does that mean in practice?
What have I had recently?
Without saying customer names, because of course that might be confidential or other things, but because we need to remember that M365, as Waldek said, it's huge, and then it's like I do M365 stuff. What's this?
Yeah. Well, I recently made a proposal for a customer. They want to archive pages connected to documents. So we could, for example, implement an SPFX extension for the command bar and in the background, it would archive the page and the documents into a same place.
Yep.
So
what would be a safe place? Sorry for trimming on things.
Place.
Same place. Okay.
Same place. Safe place would be like a SharePoint document library with permissions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you think about developing on 365, is it that you're building extensions, so like apps that show up inside 365, like the command bar extension you mentioned, or do you also build applications that live on a phone, on the web, they run in Azure, and they call back to M365, or again both?
Well, we of course have Microsoft Graph that offers us great ways to integrate with the data that lives in Microsoft 365. And yes, we do also build applications on Azure Site that utilize that data.
And we got your cat on the picture as well. That was good.
Okay.
So visited on the background.
Yeah, the mailman just
say
dropped
hi.
off something, so and she got really excited about that apparently. So yeah, I have a guard cat.
Yeah,
she doesn't bark. But, yeah.
Now, on the what kind of, sorry that we keep on trailing on this, but as an example for Azure side of the house, what kind of things are being asked from your company? So just an examples of people, what kind of things people are building
on Azure side. Well,
or integrations with M365, but then using Azure. Probably Azure Functions is quite common.
Yeah, those are quite common because they are so cheap and small and easy to implement. But we also do like full-fledged applications for businesses. For example, I'm working on one very large project at the moment where we are building this entire system for a customer for their business process. And it's very, very specific. And I wanted to give out a go at Blazor with .NET 6. So I'm implementing the UI layer using that technology, and a colleague of mine is implementing an API that the user interface utilizes and which then connects to the database. And so
is it then connected to or is it surfaced through Teams or something else?
No,
or is it just completely isolated?
This is not in any way related to Microsoft 365.
Cool.
But of course, I mean, we could totally integrate that with Teams as well if we, for example, wanted to send notifications that, okay, this process has now switched from this status to this status and is expecting you input from you. Yeah, that's actually a very nice idea. We could suggest to our customer.
There we go.
You're welcome. We are here the whole week. Vesa, you mentioned Teams. Laura, you had recently an interesting article about building your first bot and running it on Azure. So really like the end-to-end walkthrough. You haven't done anything. You want to build a bot. Here are the different steps you need to take, creating the bot, deploying to Azure, and so forth and so on. How do you find the experience of building apps or bots on Teams?
Well, it's better now than it used to be like a couple of years back. And Teams makes things so much easier. I wouldn't even look at the other ways of implementing bots. But yeah, it can still be a little bit of work to find the right tutorials when you're implementing something, but people are generating more and more content related to that. So it's getting easier and easier every day. And there's also some good Microsoft learning materials these days about Teams applications made by Andrew Connell. So yeah, if someone's looking to start up with Teams development, I would definitely recommend them to check those out.
Yeah, and coming on your blog, so that's laurakokkarinen.com. We'll put it in the of course on the podcast and video notes. But you've been always kind of writing long stories and sharing how things are actually being done. So it's not a small snippet of information. It's like, okay, let's do this, and let's do this from scratch, and let's do this properly. So the latest one being the ultimate beginner's guide to Microsoft Graph, and I guess this is multiple pages long as well. So
Yeah,
really
it's
detailed.
9,200 words.
It's okay.
Just the fact that you know it almost begs like,
It says it in like my blog editor.
Oh right, sorry. I thought you approach it as a writer doing it elsewhere, and like it came across as the purpose of that was something internal, like you said, internal learning path, because you had to do it for somewhere else. Like, you know what, I have this thing already, and there's nothing NDA about it, so let's everybody else benefit from that too. Is that how you go about it, or?
Yeah, or for example, if I need to prepare a conference talk, I quite often like produce material, and then I think, well, might as well reuse this as a blog post.
Clever. I mean, that's the best way to go about it, right? Because like, as you said, you already put the time and effort to do it, and not everybody will see your talk, and not everybody will be able to attend, join in person, or even not everybody will be able or want to watch a video. So why not repurpose that and get more out of the work you've already done, right?
Yeah, and you can still talk about the same topic later, because not everyone wants to read the blog post. And while they are at a conference, especially now that we get in-person conferences, they have the week time for learning, and they can see that, okay, now I have this 1 hour time, I want to learn about Graph. Let's go to Laura's session and learn everything about it.
And that is an interesting thing you mentioned it, right? Because you said that when there are events, folks get carved out time to learn. And you mentioned also that in the place you work, like, you know, somebody new joins and they follow a learning path to basically get ramped up on the topic of their work, right?
Yeah.
How do you see that evolve? To what extent do we really need to have in-person events, because they are more of a blocker you can put on calendar, and you don't need to do any work, and everybody knows you're away, and you get that time to learn? Or is there another way that would still allow folks to learn more asynchronously on their own terms while doing work?
Well, I think both have their own place. Like, why not do both? I think.
Well, the question is, do they work equally?
Well, when you have projects, you probably need to learn something very specific. So, of course, study the skill set that you need for your project. But at conferences, you might want to look at things that are not immediately translating to your current projects and learn about wider range of topics. And that definitely gives you the time slot that I'm dedicating this week to learn. And otherwise, people might not do that because they are prioritizing project work. And I'm not sure if all people are even allowed to study like during work hours. Are they able to study at home? And of course, live events are also for other things than learning. At least I get a ton of energy from them for my work. So like if you need more inspiration and like an energy boost, like to get excited about your job again, then conferences also do that. You are able to make new friends there. And it's just also a lot more things than just learning.
Yeah. But there's always benefits and in both options for sure. And I guess we'll see more and more. Well, first of all, we should be considering the remote conferences not as a copies of in-person conferences, because I still don't understand why are we keeping the same model for many of these remote conferences what we do in person, because it just doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, there's room for both. So basically optimize remote and then in person, because even though we as a Finn, like right, Laura, we are pretty shy and on the meeting people is always interesting, but it's still interesting to actually meet people. It's a different thing than watching people through video lens. So
yeah, you can talk about off-topic stuff as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we wouldn't just randomly start talking about completely off-topic stuff in the Teams, most likely. Maybe every now and then.
Why not? Right? I'm like, okay, where is this going? Let's learn.
But still, it's not the same, like for us humans, when we just see a video of another human than actually being there in person. I guess it produces different chemicals in our body.
That's
It is.
pretty analytical way of saying that.
Well, but it is the way, like, there is research that shows that is indeed the case, right? That we react differently to a video of someone, even if it's live, to a person in person.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, and I think it's also interesting thing to see, like, we've seen benefits of making video or making events online because they're more inclusive, right? Like, we allow people to take part from places on Earth that maybe they weren't able to afford, or weren't able to join for political reasons or whatever reasons there are, and now they can join. But I think we still haven't really cracked the format, right?
Yep.
Like, it's like, it feels like second choice in a way. Well, we couldn't do it in person, so we do this, and we kind of know that it's not perfect, but it's the thing we can do now, right? And now that things open up, I think we kind of have this dilemma where, well, we could get back to in person, but then we realize more and more and more something that I think we weren't as aware of in the past, that we are going to exclude that group of folks again, because if we go back, like, so I think we're kind of this mode, like, okay, how do we go about it now that we're aware that there's a bigger audience? And yes, we want to upgrade the experience in a way to that in-person feeling, but at the same time bring everybody along. And I guess that like, we still don't have an answer to that. Laura, I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Well, you could always record the sessions. At least then people would get the content. But of course, if it's just like delivered after the event, then they can't quite as well ask questions. But of course, live streaming is also an option, and maybe there could be a chat and a moderator answering the questions and asking, or at least like presenting the questions to the person on stage.
And I guess that's always a difference between, if it's a Microsoft, as an example, if it's Microsoft organized and coordinated conference, and then it's not intended to make money. So it's intended to actually share information. If it's, however, a privately organized conference, there is an interest, not necessarily to make money, but at least get to even on the costs. So for those, it's more beneficial to get people in person. And then the question is, what is the special thing of being in person versus remotely if we will broadcast the thing live as well? It's an interesting dilemma, though. I guess there's multiple ways of doing this in the future. One way of also something which we talked with Waldek, and I guess we can talk about this one in here as well, it's that, of course, as an example, Build and Ignite, those are big bang conferences, and they're kind of cool. A lot of things happening in 3 days and all of that stuff. But as we have been remotely for 3 years or 2 years, why do we need to stack 80 sessions or 90 sessions throughout 2 days or 3 days time booking? Why aren't those scattered throughout the year? Why isn't 2 days in 2 hours in every single week for some big announcements? Why do we announce 800 new things? This is the new shiny thing. No, this is on the same day.
And then it gets more attention and hype instead of it being everyday thing.
But the question is, and does it? If we announce 800 new items, from those 800 new items, I can imagine 5 will be the new shiny, really main attention across the tech blogosphere and all of that. 800 and whatever, 795, they were announced as well. Are they actually being discussed? I don't know. But it's an interesting kind of should we change the model, or should we have this big bang way of thinking things? So anyway, it's an interesting.
If you had 1 million and you could do anything, would you do that, or would you do something else? And if so, what?
Yeah. So personally, I'm a big believer of a continuous announcements and continuous flow of information, because again, it's not like the 3 days in the whatever conference is happening. It's not that people can allocate those 3 days from their family and work life and being remote to that conference. That just doesn't happen. And also quite often what happens is that there's like 25 different blog posts across the different platforms which are saying new in built-in for this feature and this feature and this feature and this feature. And then there's the whatever book of news in build, which has 800 new announcements. And it's like, well, really? Rather than just sharing new announcements gradually and keeping the excitement ongoing, rather than waiting for those big moments. But again, matter of opinion as well. Thoughts? Both went completely silent. What do you think about this, Laura? What is your
do people
opinion?
have time to constantly stay on track? Well, I guess if you order like a RSS feed and check through that once every couple of weeks, yeah.
Is it easier than anyway? There's no
I like
right or
big
wrong.
conferences. I want them to be back.
Yes.
In person.
Yes.
The proper
Yeah.
in-person, large conferences. 25,000 in Orlando.
Miss those times. Good fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think like if I think back to the last few times I got to attend one, really the value that I got was the expo hall and the hallway talks with everybody whom I knew. Like the big talks, like you go to a room, packed room, huge room. Like, do you really want to sit here an hour? Like, if it's a topic you're interested in, you probably like, for one, maybe you know a lot already and there are other ways to learn it. But I mean, like, sure, it gives you the ability to, be there in a room and listen to the person who is the expert and talk about it. But like, personally, to me, the value add was really in the expo hall, the hallway track, as it's called, where you get to talk to folks, or maybe even new folks. And then you get to, like you get the kind of off track talk like, hey, what do you work on? And then from one thing goes to another, and then you learn things that aren't on the agenda, that aren't really the typical topic, but are very much interesting too. Right. So it was always interesting to look back and it's like I went to this event. I haven't seen a single talk, but it was invaluable, right? So like, why was it there, right? Well, because you got to meet people in person, you got to have lunch, you had drinks in the evening, dinners, and like you made a connection. And I think that is really the hard part of doing virtual events. Like that, we cannot replicate that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's impossible. And those connections that you make, you can connect to those people later, ask for advice, perhaps even to projects together. So it can also have like a business impact.
Yeah, and also I guess another thing that is hard is time zones, right? Because like I believe like sure, if we are in the same kind of time span, we could virtually meet for drinks in theory, or agree on time. But otherwise, it's like if it's 9 a.m. your time and it's 5 p.m. for me, that's kind of odd because like my day is already gone, yours is about to start. And for any
but you can tell what's going to happen throughout the day for the other one because
absolutely,
you're in the future.
Yes, exactly. Like this day was totally uneventful. So I guess it's hard. Like that makes also, it's one of the things that I experienced working remotely, is that's also one aspect that makes it harder to connect across the world. Right, because like sure, if everybody's at home and we level the field that we give everybody equal chance to connect, that's fine. But then there's also this aspect of time where, well, I mean, like my team personally at Microsoft spans all the way from Hawaii to Australia. There's not a single time in a day that we can have a common meeting within work hours. It's just physically impossible, right? So
whatever work hours actually means nowadays, Adam.
Well, yeah, but I mean, reasonably speaking, you want people to sleep at night because that's the way the bodies are wired, So yeah, it's hard to find really time to connect. So we try to, be mindful of that and split the meetings that we have in halves, where we have one series for folks on one side of the globe and then the other one for another. But it's really hard, right? And like at the end of the day, we think about, well, we need maybe to fall back to in-person offsite. But what if next week we have somebody new who will join and there is no offsite for another year? Sure. What's the experience for that person, and how can we do better with that?
So classic discussion for sure. We are in this progress of transforming the way of working to be more remote and more time zone independent and more async, which I know Waldek is one of your favorite topics for sure, because it has to be, and then that enables people to be able to work across the world and from wherever they are located, and hopefully built on the same objectives like it should be. Something which actually related on this one, something of what I spotted last week in the LinkedIn. There was one CEO of one company said that, oh, there was a great idea in one company's signature which says it told their time zone. So even externally within the companies, you would know what is their time zone, which
That's
is
an excellent idea.
yes, that is a good idea. But then actually, for example, in my case, it makes no sense. It has no value whatsoever because my time zones don't define my working hours. My working hours are not from 9 to 5 because they're completely different. So what I've actually said now based on this, in my signature, it now says my working hours in UTC. Because then that helps on defining the objectives. So because one thing what I noticed actually, which is always a bit awkward, is that somebody schedules a meeting like 9 a.m. Pacific time, and then they always like, oh, we're so sorry for the late evening and late meeting for you. I was like, no, this is not late. This is a perfectly normal working hours for me.
I just have lunch at that time, so.
But it almost like makes me even feel bad because they feel like sorry about having me in a meeting. I'm like, well, no. It's an interesting, and of course I know that I'm a bit of an exception. So most of the people do have life, so but it's easier when you don't have any friends.
Thank you. Today we learned none of us has friends.
No.
On that bombshell.
Who's that guy? I met him.
Yes. Well, we'll be meeting a few people in person later this week, even so, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
there's stuff happening.
Good for you. No idea. Apparently, I'm
You're not
among
invited,
friends, so
okay.
yes,
so it's okay.
I'm not among friends, so there's that.
No, different. So I guess we can say this. Irvin is in town as well because of our business. Irvin Van Hunen is in business in town.
In which town?
So we'll be
in which town?
In Helsinki.
Okay.
In Helsinki. So we'll be catching up with a smaller group of people, so, which is good. So it's good to be actually going to a dinner with a friends and working friends and catch up. So.
How will you go about it? Like, do you
still
still know the way to do it?
More often, Waldek?
Yes, absolutely. I can jump on a plane. I just saw Finnair fly over, so I can just
wave
upon. Yeah. Well, no, jump on it. They have this hook. You can just like put up a balloon, and then they will just like pick you up.
It's 2-hour flight to Amsterdam, so it's 2.5. So nothing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, but then with the whole travel checking in, going in, like it's like you lose the whole day, basically.
True. That is true. That's true. I was just scheduled, confirmed a visit in Redmond for in June, and it's just mind blowing. It's been 2.5 years since I've been in Redmond, and then you need to start checking ESTA and a password and everything else. It's like, can I get in? Can I get? What?
Yeah.
All of this complexity of international travel starts again, but But again, objective of meeting people in person. So we do need them. So for sure. Now, from a timing perspective, Laura, we're going to put you on the spot. And the cat, what's the cat's name?
She was meowing and wanting attention. So
yeah, what's her name?
Puutti. It means baby seal.
Baby seal, yeah, yes.
She was white when she was born.
A specific baby seal. It's an internal lake baby seal in Finland. So.
Wow, you even have different baby seal words?
Yeah. Yes.
Why?
Because there's a specific this
but I mean, like, why?
seal is a super endangered and it's located only in the lake area of Finland.
Okay,
only.
So
and
this
like
one you don't hunt.
400, 300.
Basically.
No, definitely not. So
okay.
Okay. Yes.
Well, but I mean, like, I can imagine the word stems from a time where you could hunt it.
I guess so. Yes. Yes.
So why the difference? Why special?
I don't know.
I mean, like if you think about like Eskimos, right? Like they have so many different words for snow because like their life depends on it because you know, can you walk on it? Can you like is it thick or thin?
We have all of those
like,
things as well. Yes.
Exactly. So why? But I mean, why? Like, does one type of seal attack differently or behaves differently or?
I guess the most of the sails in Finland are those inner lake sails. I guess
There's
we might have something in. Don't we have anything in sea side?
Yeah, sea, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But Lake Saimaa, the seals were trapped there after Ice Age. Like it used to be connected to sea, but then after Ice Age, it became a lake, and that's why the seal is its own species because they have been evolving there for such a long time.
Yeah, PnP Weekly, the show where you learn most random things. Like the other day, we talked about the weather. Now we talk about seals. There you go.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's not. Now, Laura, and you as an MVP, as a community member, active person on things, can you, if there's a new people walking in and looking into coming to be an MVP or becoming part of the community, what would be your like 3 tips, if possible, to get started, or how to focus, or how would they reach to the people, or should they just ping Waldek and say, hey, help me, or what would be the things? How did you came to be an MVP?
Well, I wanted to start a blog for a really long time. I used to work with SharePoint on-prem originally, and back then I thought that no one wants to read about this because it's such legacy tech. Sorry. But when I moved to work with my current employer and started working with the cloud platforms, I figured that now would be a good time. And then I set up my blog and it became really popular. And through that, I also got to speak at conferences. That was a challenge that I wanted to do. And yeah, by doing those things, I became an MVP. But really, it's about figuring out what's the kind of thing that you want to do. Like, how do you want to contribute to the community? Because if you want to become an MVP, it takes a lot of work. So the work should be something that you also enjoy, because it's also something that you would probably be doing in your leisure time. And yeah, it should be fun. So there's different ways to contribute. Like, do you want to code and publish open source on GitHub? That's one way. You can contribute to the documentation, blog, make videos, speak at conferences, answer to people's questions on Stack Overflow, and even on social media platforms. So yeah, like figure out the way that you want to contribute and keep at it. Consistency takes quite a while.
And don't drop it whenever you get the MVP status as well.
Yeah, and if you get tired, don't give up, but instead take a break.
Yeah, that's true as well. That is true. Completely fine to take breaks as well and take a few months silent time. And one thing what reminded me on your blogs and the writings, what you do in your blog, it's actually really good for architects and people who are defining softwares and requirements and have customer-facing documentation, because as you write for your blog, you will keep on improving your writing skills all the time. And that's something what, for example, my Skip manager Adam Hametz always talks about within his writings, is that he writes and he forces himself to write so that it will make him better, because again, consistency and practice will improve the skills.
And at first, producing something like blog posts and videos is a very time-consuming task, but as you do it more often, you get this kind of a process and routine, and it gets easier. So if you're totally tired after your first article or whatever, just take a break, make a new one, and another one, and another one, and it will get easier.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with SharePoint on-prem. I just last week I found my old blog, and my first blog post is from 2007, if I remember correctly, and it was about feature framework, navigation, controlling of SharePoint, publishing feature using the feature framework, and documented that all. So just for smiles. Anyway, so it's good to find those old blogs and articles, and then be like, oh, I've written this. Oh, okay. Practice. Good. Any last words? What's happening this week or upcoming weeks? Anything interesting, Laura, on your table? You don't need to talk about customer names or anything, but the most exciting things what you're working right now.
Well, I'm making a proposal, and I need to make this kind of a application security recommendation for one solution. And then I'm traveling, meeting colleagues physically. It'll be fun. So those are kind of my highlights this week.
Cool. Waldek, what about your highlights? Anything interesting on your time?
Let me see. Besides a lot of internal stuff, yeah, it's the time of the year that I got myself in this place where I would start a number of things. None of them is done. And now it's kind of, the last 5 steps on all of them. So I have like a little bit of work to do here, a little bit of there, a little bit of here, a little bit of there. I have no time left and nothing is done. And I was like, how? And it's all internal. So it's nothing really like, yeah, I'm going to do this, or I'm doing the research on that. Like, no. I need to finish stuff. So this week, I hope that I will be able to finish some things at least to get some more air. But yeah, like there's nothing really new that I'm looking into yet, because like I see this pile of work that I need to do to be done on with it. And like the last week we had an event that we organized with few MVPs.
Yep,
exactly. And with that I was like, okay, so that thing is done, but I still don't have any room left. Like there's still stuff I need to finish first, right? So it's just a regular, rhythm of work where we work on CLI, we work on new PRs. We will have an announcement to make around CLI this week, so stay tuned. It's not going away. There's nothing bad going on. Like, don't worry about it.
Exciting.
Yes, it is. Like, we think it is. We think it's great. So we will share that. Other than that, still working towards finishing stuff, really.
Yeah. And getting ready. The build announcements are coming pretty soon as well. In my side, nothing too dramatic either. It's more on polishing, catching up, and thinking the next steps. Like I said, we are in that time period of the year where most of the stuff should be already kind of done, the most critical ones, and then it's just a matter of executing. Community calls, of course, happening all the time, and all of getting those processes even more polished, but nothing too dramatic. So I can't come up with anything interesting this week. What's happening? Waldek, we need to have something. What?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, so you're working probably on a new version of SPFX.
That's
part
true.
of that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's coming.
There's some Visual Studio Code extension work being done here and there, multiple teams, all of that stuff. So there's really cool stuff in pipeline.
Yeah.
But
I'm working still on this thing that I think we mentioned it a while back, right? That we think we see a lot of things that everybody can do on Microsoft 365. There are different building blocks, SDK tools and whatnot, kind of to the point where you cannot see the forest through the trees, if there's even an expression in English, but you know what I mean. Like, it's just so much that you see all of that, or maybe not. And then you're like, okay, but what is the big picture here? Like, how are the elements related to each other? Which one fits, right? So we're working to offer developers or everybody really something to visualize it and better find their way through the maze. So like we talked about it a few times already. So that's coming hopefully soon. We're working on that still. This is also for those who are not well versed in Microsoft, the way we are organized. This is also the eval time at Microsoft. So everybody looks back at the past semester, what we've done, what could have done better, what went well. So reflecting on that. So that takes also some time for us to think through and plan, look back at the past half year and think forward about the upcoming time. So that is also in progress. And also I think it's also another exciting thing. Like, what are the big rocks that we could take on for the coming half year or a year, right? And maybe there's also a question to our audience, to like all the 2 people or 5 listen or watch. Like, what's on your mind?
That, Waldek,
okay,
10. It's okay. So.
Perfect. Right. So, like, what's on your mind? Where do you think we could help you? We at Microsoft, or we community, or we everybody. Like, what is it when it comes to Microsoft 365 platform and all the work included? Samples, docs, discovering new things, what's new, staying up to date. What could we simplify? What could we improve? If you have any ideas or questions, requests, do reach out to us. Share your thoughts with us, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to make a meaningful dent with that.
Notice how, by the way, Waldek started this 5 minutes ago, this discussion that, yeah, there isn't that much running here and there. Then this one. But
that's the way it feels. Like, it doesn't feel like anything. And then when you give it a thought, you're like, you have this pile of unfinished stuff.
Absolutely. But it's as there's no specific deadlines during this week, it feels like, what?
Yeah, nothing. No... I will work the whole week and nothing will be done.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Laura, for joining us. Really cool to have you on the discussion. Good to catch up. We'll meet actually later this week, which is pretty cool, in person as well. But thanks for sharing your thoughts and what's happening from your side as well. And the tips. Tips are really good for those, because there's always people who are looking into getting to be an MVP and understanding how this actually works. So.
It was nice to be here again. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Excellent. And then we'll jump on the weekly articles right from here. And thank you, Laura, one more time joining us. Really, really cool to catch up, and looking forward of actually meeting you in person as well, which is cool. We're catching up with a few people like we talked during the interview later this week, which is pretty, really cool. But let's jump on the articles, and then we kind of did the weekly summary already, what's happening. So let's actually jump on the weekly articles and have a look on what's happening from the blogosphere. So we'll start with the SharePoint blog. So from the Microsoft official blogs, there wasn't that huge amount of new blog posts, but on a SharePoint site there was the standard monthly summary from Mark Cashman, which walks through all of the different capabilities and features from SharePoint and the related technologies, like for example Viva Topics and Viva Connection and so on. So there's multiple products nowadays which are based on OneDrive and SharePoint, but are not actually exposed as a new feature and new capabilities. But a lot of new stuff in here as well, and a great blog post summary from Mark listing all of the different features and capabilities. What has happened? A lot of stuff, which is great for sure. Cool summary, and really great way of keeping up to date on what's happening together with the Microsoft Teams monthly summary. So if you read those two in once a month, you're pretty much up to date on what's actually happening from a feature side. Now, the second article was from the Power Apps community.
Exactly. So there is a chance for you to win this awesome Power Platform branded backpack. For those who listen to us, there is a Power Platform branded backpack that we're showing on the screen which you can win. All of it is required for you to be eligible is to record a video where you share your journey into Power Platform, what has changed, how it's affected you. There is a link that shares more info about the rules, but it is available now. And no matter whether you want a backpack or not, it's really cool to share a story of your own, how you went through it, and basically inspire others, because there are many people who for whom it might help, right? And because you went through that, there's a chance that somebody else might be going through exactly the same. So share your experience, where you came from, how you are where you are, how you work with Power Platform, and who knows, you might be one of the lucky 150 winners, 75 winners. Yes.
That is true. So that's really, really cool, and a great initiative from Power Apps and Power Platform side of the house for sure. And a key point here also was the shout out to the person who helped or inspired you along the way, which is actually a great way of showing appreciation for the other people, because I guess all of us have our people we've been following throughout our careers, and they have helped us hopefully to be successful where we are right now. Really cool idea for sure. Related on community side of the Power Apps and Power Platform, they also had this great blog post which is around 6 people who changed their career with low code from Power Apps. So basically stories related on real people and how they started using the low-code, no-code platform and how that has then changed their career, one by one, walking through those people. Really, really cool blog post as well. Now, then we had Heather Newman had a blog post, something which we actually talked about in a few of the conferences already, but it's good to recap what this is all about.
Exactly. So a while ago, I think a few weeks back, we announced at Microsoft this new initiative around community. And the idea is that how can we at Microsoft help community grow and thrive? And that means that we don't own anything, but we are here to help you run events, provide you with resources, connections, and whatever to help you thrive, connect with other like-minded folks. So this article goes into a little bit of depth behind that initiative, what's the idea, how we want to go about it, and how you can also engage with us. So if you are a part of community, or you want to start one, or there is one in your network, let us know, reach out to us, and let's talk more about how we can make it more impactful.
Yep.
Anyway,
how Microsoft can help you to be succeed on the community side for sure. And then, of course, you can also sign up for the community advisory board. So there's a registration on that one as well. So basically, we're looking for people outside of Microsoft who are running community events and organize this thing, and then they can provide us input on how they do things as well. Really cool stuff. Thank you, Heather, on that. Now, we also had a blog post from Louis Fries related on how to contribute to this blog. And this is the Microsoft 365 platform community blog, which is open for contributions and open for blog posts. And now that this blog has been moved or relocated from the tech community to a GitHub platform, it is much easier to actually do the contribution. So you can just create a blog post and submit a pull request, and we'll help you with a sharing and scaring initiative sessions to make that happen. So if you're looking into writing something, or maybe you have an article, but you want to expose that also from the platform community blog, you can do that as well. So that's absolutely open. And Louis Fries is talking about how to make that happen one by one. So really cool stuff. Thank you, Louis, on that. Then we had from Laura, we talked about Laura's long blog posts in our interview as well, right?
Yes, exactly. So this is a new article from our guest, which is the ultimate beginner's guide to Microsoft Graph. And the cool thing about it is long. It is a lot, but it's one page that takes you all the way through basically the high level basics.
Not one page.
It's
kind of a one page.
Web page.
Sure.
Web pages can be really long. It's a long page.
Fair.
It's one article, one page, one really long page, right? That takes you through all the basics that you should know about the Microsoft Graph. The name, the structure, how you call it, the headers, everything in single place. Explains basically the same way that, well, you would explain to a new developer on your team. Imagine somebody new joins. They want to connect to Microsoft 365. How do they go about it? Well, there is this API. Here is a single article that explains all of that A to Z in a way, right? So, and I guess there are also references to other locations that are meaningful. So this is definitely a great article to bookmark even.
Yep, absolutely. Really cool stuff. Thank you, Laura, on that one. Now, then Chris Kent had the series related on binary value comparison and conversions in the Power Apps, which he's been working on a certain amount of demos. We actually showed that last week. You were in that call, right, Waldek? Anyway.
I might have been, I don't know.
Okay. To talk about how do you convert binary to integer and so forth, and moving the binary values, because now every now and then you need to do that within a Power Apps, and it's a bit of a challenge, but he's talking through how it can be actually done and what are the learnings and how to do mapping and all of that. So really good 3-article blog post series on that particular technical challenge in the Power App platform. Now, then we had a blog post from Veronique Langel.
Yes, and I guess this is about how you can share files stored in SharePoint in review mode only.
Yeah.
So you basically want to have link that only allows folks to open the file, but not to be able to edit it, right? So that or actually no, it is allowing edited, but in review mode, right? So tracking changes and all of that is enabled, right?
Yep, absolutely. And then you don't need to publish the article before you can actually send it for review. So that's kind of the key point here. So there's no public article first and then you send it to review. You can actually review that before you publish that in a wider audience, which is actually really cool. The sharing feature is getting better and better all the time, which is awesome. And it's getting integrated not only on SharePoint, but also on Word and all of the other things as well. So super cool stuff. So thank you, Veronique, on explaining that. Then we had a blog post and short blog post from Alex Sadumov. Yes,
it's all the way on the top.
Yeah, but it's Sadumov Alexei. So, you know, Alex is working in Valo Solution in Finland. So well connected. But he talks about exporting SharePoint online lists with their content to PnP template and using the PnP PowerShell. And this is actually super valuable if you need to move, for example, information in two lists from one list to another site, which has a list, or create the list as part of the creation. You can actually do that, and you can export the content within the list or library as well. So
or move a list between tenants.
Yeah, exactly. Or move a list across to tenants, or include a list and content as part of your generic templates, which you use for provisioning your solutions and all of that. So really cool, simple blog post of explaining how to make that happen using the PnP PowerShell. So super cool stuff. Now on Recording 365, there was a new blog post on Waldek. What was this all about?
Yes. Arrived and delivered in April 2022. So Daniel and Daryl have a regular show where they go through the message center on Microsoft 365. And
what is a message center? What is a message center? Sorry.
It's the place. It's the place where Microsoft 365 tenant admins can learn what's coming to their environment, what's changed, what's coming, where, and they can get more info about new features and updates that will affect their environment. And in this episode, Daniel and Daryl go through what's new in April.
Yeah, really cool. And to be fair, the message center is one of the most, I would say, well-known or it's known secret, but still people don't quite use it. But because from there we can always say what's coming really super clearly. So having Daniel and
I think the interesting part there is that it's only available to admins.
Yes,
so if you are a business owner who owns a part of your collaboration environment or intranet, well, you are affected by it because you need to communicate changes, but you don't get the access to it. So that's a really interesting part.
Absolutely. Something maybe we should be adjusting maybe in the future, who knows. But again, this show is now in episode 238, and the whole point of this show is to do summaries on what has been actually happening and announced from the message center. So super valuable show from Daryl and Daniel. So thank you for keeping consistently releasing this. So super valuable for everybody. Now, Paolo Pialorsi had a new video related on using PnP ListView Control in SPFX solutions. So the PnP ListView Control is part of the PnP React ListView Control packages targeting SPFX solution. And it's a quite actually versatile functionality, which gives you flexibility on showing information in the ListView format. It really simplifies development because you can just basically say, hey, show this information, which I have this here in array, and it has a lot of flexibility. I'm trying to find a good example of flexibility on sorting and adjustments and all of that stuff directly within the control. So super easy to use and super intelligent. Good. And then Shane had a new video.
Exactly. And this time he talks about Power Apps search and filter function with SharePoint and apparently workarounds, because there are apparently quite a few things that do not work the way you would expect them to. So in this video, Shane talks us through what would you like to do, how it works, how you would expect it, what doesn't really work the way you would expect it to, and how you can go about it. So this is a really interesting article if you need anything related to search in your Power App.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last video is also from Power Platform side. It's from Reza Dorani, He's having a lot of great videos frequently published in his YouTube channel as well, which is around introduction to Microsoft Dataverse in Power Apps. So what is it? How does it actually work? And what is the benefits of using that? So really cool video on that. So relatively short as well to get up to date on the possibilities with Dataverse. But that's it for this week. We already went through what's actually happening within this week, which is it's a weird week. There's this business as usual. It's been a while since this is happening, so which is actually kind of cool. It's not a critical thing. There's no deadlines as such. Sure, community goals and everything else, but it's a bit of a wow. So
yeah, we have time to actually do work.
Yeah,
surprise,
exactly.
surprise.
Yes. Amazing. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and thanks Laura for joining us this week. We'll be back within the next PnP week within a week, right? I guess that's in the name.
Because it's a PnP Weekly. Yes, what's in the name, right?
Excellent.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
See ya.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.